you have class at 1 o'clock. Trust me that we're going to be going very quickly through this. I'm going to be sticking around after. If there's specific questions you have for you and your team that you maybe don't want other teams to hear about, you're more than welcome to stick around, and I could definitely chat with you guys individually. So this is our second annual, let me turn off the jazz music, as nice as jazz is. This is our second pre-health case competition. We plan on doing one every semester. We do one also for business, but this is a great experience to use your critical thinking skills within the healthcare field in situations that are actually facing our communities. So today I'm going to be going over the case itself, the rubric that you'll be judged on, the essay that you would submit prior to the competition presentation, and a little bit on the Excel unit process for those that are trying to get Excel units for it. So let's start with the case itself. And I know everyone has their description if you want to pull it out, write any notes. So I'm going to read out the case study and I'm going to give more details on each one. So HIV and AIDS remains a persistent problem for the United States and countries around the world. While great progress has been made in preventing and treating HIV, there's still much to do. Florida has become one of the leading hotspots for HIV diagnosis, children, adolescents, and adults. As Florida's HIV and AIDS caseloads keeps growing, more leaders are calling for change. So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has decided to spearhead a new task force to combat this issue. Now this is where you guys come in. You will each, and you and your team, you're going to be put in the role of an epidemiologist, and the CDC has sent you to Florida to select members for a task force to lead this initiative and investigate the increased incidence of HIV in the state and develop solutions. As the head of the CDC task force, you must identify which members you will add and add value to this effort. With whom would you collaborate? And it gives a lot of those different examples. So before I go further, that's going to be the first step in this. So as you develop or decide, hey, I'm going to do this competition by myself, or I'm going to do this competition with a group of people, no matter which one of your first tasks is, what task force am I going to develop? You know, how large is my task force going to happen? Imagine being in that role and the epidemiologist in that field, and you're thinking, well, absolutely, I need to collaborate with the mayor or these type of government officials, these community members, or these different nonprofits. It's up to you to decide who you collaborate. But for any member you choose, and you do need to create a task force, you need to explain what is the purpose of having them involved. What is the value they're going to add? How are they going to help you combat some of these issues that you're going to talk about? As I explained the essay, that's something that you want to indicate in there. And I'm going to talk about the presentation a little bit, but if you have a team of, let's say, 4 individuals, when you present on the November date, you want to make sure that you let each individual represent one of the task force members. So if, let's say, you're like, oh, for sure, I'm going to have someone that's a community-based educator. That member on your team during the presentation should focus on some key elements within that portion of the task force. Does that part make sense so far? So, yeah, please.
What if it's only one person?
So if you're one person, you're going to speak for everyone on your task force. So you're the epidemiologist, but you're also maybe X, Y, and Z on your task force as well. So it's up to you. You guys can do it in teams of 1 or up to 4 members. But one of the key things is you want to make sure that you're including who's on that task force, because that's the first step in the process. So now, once you develop your task force, it's on to the second part of this case description. Propose an intervention to reduce the incidence of HIV cases in Florida over the next 5 years. As there was even a report that came out yesterday that we've only increased the incidences of HIV here in South Florida. And as I talk about what you need to do for this case, doing your research is a key element of it. Knowing what the data is telling you. How much has it increased? What have the government or local officials in South Florida done to combat this thus far? Why isn't it working? What do you view as some effective methods to do that? Maybe even researching other areas that haven't had an HIV spike, and maybe they did some things to decrease it. Again, research is going to be key for this. So part of your proposal for the next 5 years, could focus on these variables. It doesn't have to deal with these variables. These are just some suggestions. Population disparities, health behavioral theories, how we will use them, anti-stigma campaigns, the use of social media in preventing HIV and AIDS, sexual risk reduction, injection drug users, LGBT community, thinking about other outside-the-box ideas. But these are some prompts that were provided by faculty that they may want to see and focus on. And guys, it's okay if you missed something before. I'm here till 1 o'clock, so I'm going to be answering a lot of questions afterwards. So you now have gotten 2 parts of what you're doing in this. You're A, developing a task force, you being the epidemiologist, and then developing who else is going to be on your task force. The second, what interventions are you going to use to reduce the prevalence of HIV in South Florida? Then the next part, the final step, is provide specifics on how you assess the impact of your interventions. How will you know the interventions were successful? So if you say, I'm going to do an awareness campaign with the community, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z in this campaign, how are you going to know it's worked? How are you going to assess its impact? Why do you feel it's going to be successful? Again, you're going to have to back yourself up with research. It's as if you're presenting it back to the Center of Disease Control. So you got to think, if I was in that role, how would I accurately explain to them that I'm being successful, or this is going to work in the way that I want it to work? So before I go into more details on the essays, the presentations, does anyone have questions on those 3 specific prompts within the case itself? Yes, and I mentioned, yes, please.
So for over the next 5 years, does it have to be like a step-by-step plan, or can it just be like an overview of what you plan to do?
Well, I think if you give an overview, you got to be specific on what that overview is going to do. And since you got to assess the results of that, you can give like, next 5 years we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But what's the impact you want to have? As detailed as you can be. You don't have to give step by step, but as much in those details as possible, because you're going to have to help that committee or that judges understand what you're trying to get accomplished with that big plan you have. But it could be as specific and broad as you need it, but as long as it gives them clear details on how you plan on impacting that area. And again, guys, you could do this in teams of 1 through 4. So if you decide to do it by yourself, you still need to explain who's going to be on that task force, and you need to explain a little bit on what's the purpose of having them on your task force. Any other questions on the case? Awesome. So once you gather all this information and you're ready, so today you come to the info session, that's great, but to officially sign your team up, you need to email me, and you can see my email address right there, with your team information. So every team needs to have a team captain. Obviously, if you're a 1-person team, you're your own captain. But if you are going to have a few members, be like, Emilio, I'm the team captain for this group, and here are the other team members. Just include their name and email addresses, and that way we can sign you up. And so you'll be officially registered for the case competition. After that, you start working on the case. You don't have to submit anything until November 6th. And that's not even a lot. All you need to submit on November 6th is 500 words or less summary on things you plan on pitching. Obviously, you're not presenting until November 27th, so you may have not fully formalized your pitch, but you should have already started. We're on September 18th right now. November 6th is a while away. So at least give a summary of what you've developed so far, who you've identified on your task force, and what you plan on pitching as a whole. That's really where you need to focus the essay on. Any questions on this? Yeah, please.
Can we use like outside sources to put in our presentation?
Absolutely. The more research, the better. When I get into the presentation, I'll mention that, but you shouldn't just be coming up with the ideas. You know, if let's say you come up with ideas, this would definitely impact this problem in the South Florida community. You need to back yourself up with research. Maybe not a specific example, but maybe how those interventions are going to be placed, what you know about the industry. I think if you say South Florida, like if you use a stat in the presentation, South Florida is the 3rd highest area for HIV cases. We would like to know where you got that from. Like it shows that thorough research you've done so far. So, guys, any other questions on the essay? Yeah, please.
Well, just when should we email you by with the team information?
As soon as you know the team members, and if let's say you're like, Milo, I'm for sure doing it, I'm still trying to gather my other team members, you could officially register and then we could add your team members down the road. But it is, we do have plenty of spots available, but we want them, if let's say we get 20 teams, there may not be a lot of room to add more people down the road. Yeah.
I already sent an email a few weeks ago with me as a team member, and do I need to send it again?
If you send me an email, I could verify we got you, but I think we have about 3 teams currently signed up right now. Yeah.
So, so the proposal / summary, that is not going to be exactly the same as when we present to the panel, right?
It's going to have some elements of it, but the summary is just showing that you've done some of your work, you've done your research, and giving an idea of where you're focusing your presentation on.
And it has to be maximum 500 words, you said?
No, it could be longer than that. It
Okay.
just, it could be 500 words or less, or it could be more than that.
Okay.
Ideally, at least 500, because 500 words is like a
Yeah.
paragraph. And so you definitely need to include that who's going to be on my task force and some focus areas that I'm going to focus my pitch on. It's a good question. Any other questions here? So again, you're going to develop the task force, you're going to come up with solutions on reducing that incidence, and you're going to talk about how you're going to assess that it was effective. And then in that summary, 500 words or more, detailing some elements that you're going to have in your pitch. Now, we talk a little bit about, so by November 6th, you email me your summary, and then I'm going to be scheduling a time for your team to present. So we're doing the presentations November 27th, which is a Tuesday, and November 29th, which is a Thursday. We're doing it from 4 to 6 o'clock. And so each team is going to have about 12 minutes to present their solutions for this case. Yeah?
Did you say the 28th or the 29th? Because this is the, did you say Thursday? Tuesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday?
Oh, I must have the incorrect things. I'm sorry
Okay.
about that, guys. It's going to be November 27th and 29th.
All right, thank you.
I apologize. I'll fix this on the case.
4 to 6, right?
4 to 6 o'clock. So, and don't worry, if you, let's say, are like, I have a 4 o'clock class, we make sure to schedule a time that works. If we have more teams, it might get extended a little bit past 6 o'clock. Now, the one thing is that if you're a team that, let's say, is presenting last, you can't sit in on the other presentations. So we're very careful about that so that teams don't maybe take ideas or switch ideas. Now, if you presented already, you're more than welcome to attend the other presentations. The announcement of the winner wouldn't happen until that Friday. And so that's when we're going to be announcing our final winners for the comment. It's going to be during a lunch from 12 to 1. All participants are invited, and then we'll be announcing our winners then. Now, any questions on the setup for that, the logistics, or anything on signing up? Yeah, please.
Sweet. The question was just like, do you know the location of both of these yet?
Yeah, so both of them will be held in the Terry Building or the Health Professionals Division. I'll be providing directions to all the teams about this. Yeah.
When should we send like our schedule to combine with like the meeting presentation?
We'll reach out to you. Ideally, we want to see the summary first, because if you don't submit a summary, we want to make sure that you're engaged and not going to drop out of the competition. So we usually get the summary, and then we sign you up for the presentation itself. But yeah, Terry Building for the presentation. But guys, we're in constant communication with you. Your Excel career advisors, myself, we're going to be sending you a lot of updates and things like that. And if at any point as you and your team develop your pitch, you need guidance or you need to ask me a question, I'm happy to be a point of resource, and so are our career advisors. Just know that when I give you advice, it's nothing that I know from other teams, so it's only objective advice that I'm giving you throughout the whole process. Please.
How long are the presentations?
12 minutes with a Q&A afterwards. Competition is being judged by faculty in the Halmos College, and faculty in the Osteopathic Medical College, the public health program. Guys, any other questions on the logistics and the setup for that? Would you mind if I borrow the rubric real quickly? So guys, and if you didn't get a copy of that, I think we have extra copies. Naima, do we have extra copies of the rubric? So guys, on the way out, be sure to grab that. But I'll be emailing everyone that came today this as well. This is the rubric that the judges use to check your... No, we get it afterwards. This is the rubric that judges will use to evaluate your presentations on the day of. So you can see the first one is the project concept and plan. And so the focus of that was the project idea well thought out and group showcased the ability to communicate information. So it's not just about the great idea. Can you help that judges understand your perspective and clearly explain how you're going to combat this issue? Purpose, you understand the issue itself. Priority, evaluate which issues are the most pressing. Solution, understanding the solutions and having a realistic approach to these solutions. So you could say, yeah, we're going to do $1 billion marketing campaign to solve awareness in HIV. But truthfully, would you have $1 billion to use if you were working on a task force that's new? And so you got to realistically think about these options as you're pitching them. Creativity and interdisciplinary. So thinking outside the box for solutions, ability to build off concepts that are previous implementations. This is where doing your research is key. If you've noticed something that's worked in other communities or ideas that you've gotten off research, back that up. Those are things that can really add value to your presentation. Extent of research conducted. So they want to know that you've thought this idea through, that you understand the problem, you understand why it's maybe progressing the way it is, and that why your ideas or your solutions would be best fitted for this. So including evidence, potential for your ideas, demonstrate understanding of the underlying research. And then finally, presentation and delivery. You know, having visuals. I do recommend on the day of showing up with handouts. If there's something that you need us to print on your behalf, I always say, you give it to me 48 hours before, I'll make sure the judges have it. Anything within 24 hours, I may not be able to have enough time to print it all out for you, but you're more than welcome to come with it. You will have a PowerPoint or a Prezi that you could use, but the more visuals in your presentations, the details, handouts, that can only enhance your presentation. You will be judged if there's errors in your presentation. Again, this is for your own development too, so if you have grammatical errors or incorrect information, you know, it could hinder your presentation or hinder the evaluation of that. Ability to answer questions. That's why you want to do your research. The faculty, the judges may ask you something, how did you come up with this number? Or where did you come up with this idea? Or what are your thoughts on X, Y, and Z? So you as a team need to be prepared to answer those. Now, part of the presentation is delivery is that if you are in a team of, let's say, 4 individuals, that each one speaks a little bit. It shouldn't be just one presenter and everyone else takes the back seat. Everyone should at least have a little portion to say, even if one of the members is predominantly speaking. Obviously, if you're by yourself, it's your show. But keep those things in mind, because if you're a team, they want to evaluate you as a team and they want to hear others speak or answer questions and everything like that. Guys, any questions on the evaluation process, the case itself, the essay, the prompts? Guys, a good idea is a good idea. I know there's a lot to this, but just know our last 3 competitions, business and pre-health, have been won by our freshmen, and the judges don't even know they're freshmen until afterwards. A good idea is a good idea. A good research and evaluation is what it is. And so take your time. It's a real issue that's combating South Florida, but also many other nations and other communities. There's a lot of research on this topic, and so I would recommend doing your findings. Don't be afraid to think outside the box, calling an HIV Foundation, doing your homework. We are working to have someone from the HIV Foundation in attendance as well, because this competition is being held a few days before National AIDS Day. So it's very relevant. I'll be honest, if many of you in this room are thinking about medical school, dental school, or any professional program, it is going to stand out in your application because it's unique. And these professional schools are always looking for opportunities where you've immersed yourself in the knowledge base or relevant topics in the field. nothing more right now than HIV, and so it could be a great selling point for your application when you do go to those professional programs. Yes?
So, are we allowed to have, not to lead off with, but, just like, notes if we would forget something?
Yeah, so if you have a presentation, you're more than free to use your note cards or just little notes that you have. That's more than welcome as well.
We're just talking about how to prevent infection, not like improving quality of life of people who already have infection.
No, this is just the prevention. So it's very much focused on the public health. Like, we already have the issue. How do we decrease the prevalence of that issue? I mentioned just in the news yesterday, I was saying that we're increasing the amount of HIV cases over the last few years. So something's obviously happening that they're not doing, or they should be doing, or things that they haven't even considered should be in their wheelhouse. And honestly, there is no task force. So this is up to you to think outside the box of, if now the CDC is really focusing in on how to solve this, what would they go about doing? And there's no limit on who you can collaborate with, who you can work with. As long as you're explaining the value, you know, it's fair game. And I do, guys, if you're ready to sign your team up, please email me as soon as possible with who the team captain is, who your team members are. Again, if you're still gathering team members, but you absolutely are going to do it, email me and I'll sign your team up and be able to send you all the information. Awesome. Any other questions? Yes?
For the Excel, for the Excel plan,
Yeah.
is the faculty sponsorship, is that our Excel reimbursement?
Yeah, no, that could be, this faculty sponsor for freshmen and sophomores, it's more to guarantee you're doing this and you have a faculty that's supporting you. That faculty doesn't have to take a hands-on role. For freshmen, I would recommend going to your FYE faculty. Sophomores, you can go into any faculty. More than anything, it's just someone that you could ask them, hey, what's a good presentation? Or can I, you know, like just someone that you can go to for guidance. Our Excel advisors, myself, are also there for guidance. But the faculty sponsor is just someone else that you could use as a mentor. And you can explain to them that this wouldn't be more work on them. This is just someone that you can go back to and ask questions about. And they're not going to know about the case. So you can tell, you don't have to know about the case. It's just having a mentor there that supports me. But yeah, for those Excel credit, you do have a checklist here. Your Excel career advisor can walk you through on how to get unit credit for this. But if you go through this entire thing, it's all things that you have to do anyways. You have to write an essay. You're going to have to meet with your career advisor. You came to the info session today. So you've already done a lot of things that are a part of this as well. And so for those looking to get Excel unit credit, follow this handout that kind of breaks it down. It even has a sample rubric that we went over. But I would recommend making an appointment with your Excel career advisor because they're going to walk you in from beginning to end on the process. And it's something that's going to be great for you. Now, one of the best parts, the prize itself. So first place does get $500 of Visa gift cards. Second place gets $200 worth of Visa gift cards. Yeah?
It's $500 in total, no matter.
$500 in total. So it's up to you on how many team members you have because then you're going to have to split the prize. Yeah, please.
Can we recruit team members that didn't come to this orientation?
Absolutely. And so that's why I'm going to send you a video recording of today's session so you could share with them. So even if they didn't come, if they watch the video, they can count it on their Excel unit that they went to the info session because it's a part of just watching the information. But if you know, again, it's first come, first serve for the team signups. So if you know absolutely you're going to recruit people, you just need to get a team member, so email me, sign yourself up, and then after the fact, we'll add some team members to it. I think I saw some more questions. Anyone?
So everyone who's attended here is going to get an electronic version of these handouts and the video?
Correct. And if you want to respond to that email and sign your team up, or you have more questions, and at any point you can come in, you could schedule an appointment with myself, your Excel advisor, and ask very specific questions to your teams. Bill, I'm thinking about this with my pitch or things like that. Just know it comes very objective. We don't do any information sharing. So there's no information that will go from one team to another. We try to keep it as private and competitive as possible. Awesome. Any other last questions? If you guys want to ask anything individually of me, I will be hanging out afterwards. So please feel free to come on by and I'd be happy to answer anything. But Thank you all for coming today, and hope to see you signing up soon. And if you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to reach on out.